It's time to get nerdy, y'all.
A little bit of gaming history for you.
Something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it.
Should we kick it out of here, or should we kick-start it?
This is the part where you, the listeners, try to stump the hosts.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, lads and lasses of all ages, welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. And you know what that means? It means it's time to get nerdy. I am your host, Mack, and I am joined by a special guest co-host, TheNerdNextDoor, tonight, and we are going to take you, well, it's going to be a short episode. So instead of taking you all the way through news, history, Kickstarter projects, Legalese, and everything in between, we're just going to focus in on one short one because time is short. But we are excited to have you here, both you who are listening, as well as you, Nerd Next Door. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
For those of you who are wondering, no, Lom and I, Mr. Nice Guy and I, we're not on the outs. No. He will be back next week. He is just a man with a plan. And a busy man at that. But, Nerd, thank you for being here. As I understand it, you are somewhat of a legal expert, are you not?
No, I took the LSAT, and I got a pretty high score. I think I was in the 85th percentile, maybe
nice.
88th. Anyway, I realized at some point that I did not want to be a lawyer. I hated lawyers as well as legalese, and that hatred has never stopped. I am now a low-level bureaucrat, and I absolutely continue to hate legalese. I don't understand it. I am the least qualified person to talk about it.
Maybe I'll steer clear of that if I want to keep my love for it then.
So I will just bust out my wait whenever I don't understand something.
I mean, I think that makes you perfectly suited for this role. Well, I wanted to share a little bit of legalese tonight, even though we don't have the regular show on, because it seems a shame to not call it out. Apple is misbehaving in a move that shocks all of us.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's not surprising.
No, given what we know. But, then again, it's not surprising for most of them. Very few are the very good actors in these cases.
I can't believe that Apple is still pulling crap, though. I mean, Steve Jobs has been dead for a really long time. You would think... I don't know. You just think that like at some point you let it go. It's just like, all right, you were a big dumb company. Now like move on. I don't know. Like what's gonna happen when all of the Walmarts are dead? We're just gonna strip mine the asteroids anyway. That seems stupid.
Well, Earth first, because we'll strip mine the other planets later. But let me tell you a little bit about the misbehavior, Nerd. As with many lawsuits, this stuff has been going on for a long time, and this specifically has to do with Epic v. Apple. And we first started talking about this, I want to say as far back as episode 136. It wound up being big news all throughout the hundreds. We were still talking about it in in episode 199, 248, 266. As recently as 301, we were chatting about some of the stuff. Anyway, so Epic v. Apple, been going on for a long time. And as a brief recap, several months before Epic decided that it was no longer going to honor the terms of its contract with Apple and Google, but that's another story. Specifically, some provisions such as you can't deliberately hide code in your updates from us. You have to give us a cut of your sales on the mobile devices because we're the ones who are hosting your game and such. They broke their contracts and... then Apple and Google as well both removed Epic's very popular Fortnite video game from its platforms. I
think I need some clarification, actually. So what exactly happened?
Could you be a bit more specific?
No, What happened? I don't understand. You said they broke their contracts. What'd they do?
Basically, all developers who put video games out for either iOS, Apple devices, or Android, Google devices, have agreed as part of being on that platform to give Apple or Google a 30% cut of the sales that they make in those apps. It's sort of, we're the ones who are hosting the market here, the farmer's market or whatever, and we get our 30% cut. And everybody who agrees to be on those platforms, whether that's through the iOS App Store so that you can actually download it, or on Google's Google Play Store, has agreed on their side to give them that 30% cut.
So you're telling me that when I download Stellarium on my phone, they have to give a certain percentage to the Apple Store?
Yes, if you bought anything through Stellarium or if you paid for the app itself. Now, there are other things that they have to pay for. For example, it's not free to have access to the software to make those apps necessarily.
So they basically got around it by saying, so the way that this would work in a normal app would be like if I made an app like Stellarium, and then you could download it for whatever price, and then you could buy stuff inside the app. Let's say you could buy, I don't know, the right to name a star or something stupid. That would never happen. Sure. But, then I, as the company, Stellarium, am saying, I'm just going to tell the Google Play Store about all of the downloads, but I'm not going to tell them about all the people that named a star after themselves. That's what you're saying.
Yes. The specific way that they did it was normally you agree to also use their payment processor, at least in the case of Apple, so that essentially the payments get run through the app store that you're hosted on. And so Apple sees how many purchases of V-Bucks or whatever are going on. So they kind of instantly know how much and they take their cut. But what Epic did with the Fortnite was they said instead of processing it through there, they sent them to an outside card processor, one that allowed them, Epic, to keep 100% instead of doing the 30-70 split. And they wrote that into the code so that it would do that and direct people to buy it direct from them instead of within the app so that they had to split the money. But they wrote that in, and then they hid the fact that that stuff was written in to the code. Not only was it directly something that they had agreed in their contract they wouldn't or wouldn't do, they also tried to hide it from Apple, because it had already been in the code for 3-4 weeks before they kind of flipped a switch on their side.
They were like, Steve Jobs is dead. They're never going to know.
Wozniak's the one who you got to be worried about.
Wozniak walked away. They're never going to know.
They'll never know. So they had agreed not to do this. They did it, and they also hid it from them. And then once they got caught...
really, really unsuccessfully.
Well, actually, arguably pretty successfully, because, video games are complicated messes of code. It's very difficult to know exactly what is going on, which is why you're supposed to disclose to any of these platforms, like, if you're making an update, okay, what's in this update? What is this update doing? What changes have been made? Because they don't have the manpower to essentially review all this code all the time.
But I guess I feel like that would be, like, to me, I'm just like, you just need like a budget and finance guy that's like, okay, I'm gonna buy, exactly $11,267.11 worth of stuff, and then look for that fiscal, back end report. It's just like why wouldn't you? Like, I work for the government, so we pay for a lot of things. I will literally search for things based on how much they cost, because it's like, if I type in, plumbing service right? For anything. It's like that's, if you want to know what the government does, it's mostly plumbing. It's mostly infrastructure, If you're not swimming in sewage, thank your local government. But if I want to find like an invoice or something, if I want to find how much someone spent somewhere, I will type in the exact amount of money that it was, because it usually goes down to the cent, and then I can usually pull it up out of 3 other things as opposed to 10,000 things. And so I guess I just wonder, why didn't they have like a budget and finance guy, spend a very specific kind of money and then look for whether or not that showed up?
So it's my understanding that what happened was that normally there would have been X amount of purchases inside of the app, right? And so Apple was used to seeing a certain amount of cut from the V-Bucks, but then that drops off precipitously because Epic is like, hey, instead of clicking here, click here to buy the V-Bucks. And so that drops down. Somebody is just like, oh my gosh, we're not getting the type of money from Epic that we should be getting. And somebody pops into the app and is just like, oh, look at that. You can buy direct from them in complete, complete defiance of what they agreed to be hosted on this platform in the first place.
But how long did it take for them to figure it out?
I am not prepared with that information because, by God, this has been going on since 2018. And I've got a good memory, but I don't have good enough. So they do that, right? And they do the thing, they flip that switch, people start buying directly from Epic, which is not how they're supposed to be doing it. And during that time, Apple says, hey, you guys broke your contract. We can kick you completely off of our platform. We can shut your stuff down. And they did. And Epic was prepared with a big, PR push that included advertisement video and an ad campaign that made it look to be, hey, we're the good guys here because we didn't want to give Apple the cut of money that we agreed to. And to be fair, before we think that I'm going too hard to bat for Apple here, Apple isn't your friend, Epic isn't your friend, and both of these companies have spin doctors dedicated to trying to cast themselves as the good guys, even while they do things to actively make the world worse for everyone on the planet except for them.
I would just let them kill each other, I don't know that I would go to hard to bat for either one.
I mean, if only it was possible to put two companies into a cage and let them fight it out. But sadly, that just doesn't wind up. It doesn't wind up doing anything good for the rest of us. Nonetheless,
all of the consumers that just love Fortnite,
listening
to this millennial podcast.
No, there are actually legitimately a lot of people that enjoyed Fortnite, that still do to this day. It is a popular video game, and people are still playing it. People wanted to continue to play it on their iOS and Android devices, and for a little bit there, they couldn't. And then while this court case got going, there was an injunction. And what courts tend to do is they tend to try and preserve the status quo while things are going through litigation. And as a result, that kind of restored Epic to where they were. They're like, hey, well, we figured this all out in the courts. Let's go ahead and let's, just put things back the way they were and have everybody do the thing that they were doing before. And we just keep it business as usual until we get to the end. Eventually, the case finally got through the courts, and they came to the conclusion, and there were basically 10 big questions. And the one thing I want to focus on tonight is question number 10, and it was, of the things, the only thing that the court said that Epic had a good case on. And that was that Apple had to allow developers to be able to direct their people to alternative payment options, with a little bit of an asterisk. And the asterisk is that those specifics weren't especially well elaborated at the court level, because obviously, what does a judge know about the ins and outs of purchasing on an iOS device? So Apple got a little bit cheeky and set up what I think is arguably a really, really terrible way to try and be like, oh, look, we did the thing that you said we had to do, but it's really difficult, and that's not our fault.
Malicious compliance.
Exactly. Malicious compliance. 100%. So, thanks to that court order, now a developer can apply to Apple to allow them to add in alternative payment methods, 2, follow a very specific style guideline that the alternate payment must use, and 3, display a nice big, you are leaving the Apple Store. Apple cannot guarantee the privacy or safety of your purchase. Splash screen before it goes to it. Now, there is more to it, of course, because there always is. But the main thrust is that Apple was told to do something. They decided that they didn't really want to do it, so they would maliciously comply. And now Epic has gone back to the court and said, hey, these guys are specifically in defiance of the court order. And that has taken this case that we thought was more or less finished ever since, say, episode 301. Or 289 or whatever it was.
What's Epic's big beef? That the splash screen is like, we can't guarantee your safety.
Epic's big beef is that in the court order, the spirit of that was, hey, you have to allow people to buy from somebody who's not you. But Apple, instead of doing that, you just put a whole bunch of hoops. Because effectively, if somebody has to navigate through 4 screens on their phone, and a bunch of scary looking ones in order to try and get through this payment method, they're just going to default to the old one, to the one in your app. So you're effectively trying your best to make it so that people don't do this. And you know full well what you're doing. That's their big beef, is that they told you to do something, and basically you put it up on a 30-foot pole and said, hey, everybody can have access to it. You just got to get to the top of the pole.
So then they got slapped down, or?
That's the thing. This has just barely happened. So they are taking them back to court on the, hey, guys, you were told explicitly to do this, and you kind of did something that flew in the face of this, so we're taking you back.
Basically, Apple was like, Epic, you've been stealing money, committing fraud. Mm-hmm. And then the courts were like, no, it's okay that people buy stuff inside of the app.
Yeah. And so now, back to the courtroom they're headed.
Got it. Okay. So I have a question. Do you think, how would you stop really dumb litigation between incredibly large and really pointless companies from happening? Because I will say, I think it gums up our legal system in a way that's like not good.
I don't have an answer for that because, frankly, I don't think without a huge change to many aspects of the American legal system, if that would ever be possible. And I don't know as I'm ready in a short format podcast such as this to propose massive changes to a country's legal system.
I think that I'm not saying the legal system has to change. I'm saying
it definitely does.
I'm saying if you have over 10,000 employees, Thunderdome. That's it. You have a problem with another company with over 10,000 employees? Thunderdome. That's what we make you do.
Do we just select specific champions, or do we throw all 20,000 employees in there at once?
I'm going to select specific champions. I think that last one is going to be really hard on the plumbing.
Do they get a chance to, select their weapons as well?
I don't know. I feel like it should be like hand to hand. I think it should be just bare hands.
Would you be surprised to hear that this was floated as a legitimate option not too long ago?
I feel like yes, I would be very surprised.
So, the guy who made Minecraft, right, goes by Notch online. And he made a game called Scrolls. Bethesda is very well known for their video game series, The Elder Scrolls. Elder Scrolls 3 is Morrowind. Elder Scrolls 4, Oblivion, and so on. And so they initially objected to his use of the term scrolls for a video game because he's like, oh, everybody's going to confuse it. That's the sort of legalese that they talk about that. And his response was, hey, how about we do a game of Unreal Tournament? Winner wins instead of taking this to court. And Bethesda did not take him up on that, but they did eventually drop it.
That is so dumb. I can't imagine that he has like a ton of employees. So like Bethesda could easily have found like their one champion and paid that guy whatever. You know, like they totally could have won. They absolutely could have won.
All I'm saying is that in the recent past, that has been floated as a legitimate option. Now, granted, it was a digital Thunderdome in the sense of Unreal Tournament, the video game.
No, I guess that makes sense. You don't want people to like get harmed and die, you know. So, but you
unlike
would want...
NerdNextDoor, who was bloodthirstily screamed for hand-to-hand combat in the Thunderdome moments ago.
I think bloodthirstily screamed is absolutely not what happened.
The least charitable reading,
the
you might say.
The least charitable reading of what happened just not more than 8 minutes ago. So I would say that yes, I could see that, like game of chess type of thing, or just old school, just arm wrestle. You just arm wrestle for it.
Since the medium we are dealing with is video games, I think the only appropriate place to have that sort of a back and forth with champions is in fact in a video game. It's just fitting, closes the circle.
Yes.
But anyway, it is just worth pointing out, Epic has never been your friend. They spent a lot of time lying to people about what was going on and obfuscating that the only thing they were doing was trying to get 100% of your dollars rather than having a 70-30 split that they had contractually agreed to.
Well, wasn't Fortnite like addictive for children too? Like very specifically targeting children, getting their parents' accounts and spending $10,000.
So I think you might be referring to the specific stuff where they were like, not only were they getting thousands of dollars targeting children, but also they were, selling the data of minors to other companies and all sorts of shenanigans for which they settled for $500 million with the FTC.
Wait, so did the FTC get $500 million?
Yes, the FTC got $500 million from Epic for, among other things, like, again, one of the things that they...
where does that money go? Because that, to me, I'm just like, well, this can't just go to, like, the FTC, because they cannot have that many employees. I'm like, where is the $500 million going? Because it should be going to infrastructure.
It's probably going to various legal battles, like various antitrust lawsuits and such that the FTC is doing. So they're just...
the only people that make any money out of this is the frickin' lawyers, which again, I bring up Thunderdome. That's easy peasy. Nobody wins. There you go. I solved it.
It will be interesting because this means that a chapter that we thought for sure was closed, this Epic v. Apple, we thought it was done. They had gone through all the court stuff. They went to the appeals court and it was upheld. They exhausted their final appeals, and so it was as it stand. But now the book might be open again. They're going back on this last count that Apple probably has been doing stuff flying in the face of. And we could see some sparks fly. Who knows? I don't know. But it's back on the table. Something that's kind of defined this show in Legalese for more than 100 episodes. And it's going to happen again. And I got to admit, I'm kind of excited about it. And I wanted to share that excitement with you.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for being on. It was great to have you. And if you want, you can join us again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, twitch.tv/2nerdsinapod, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central Time. And until we see you next, be excellent to each other and keep it nerdy. Bye.